Lara.
Lara.
Lara Croft. They need to
Um,
give her the triangle boobs, man. I feel like
let's.
that's a very
Oh,
important key aspect of this.
are
But
we on?
no, no, no.
I
It's like
mean, yeah, she what was I gonna say about Lara? Oh, it's the aluminum of American culture. We see the name, we want to call it Laura, as Lara, like aluminium is, how you pronounce the it, but we call it aluminum, and you know, Streisand effect or whatever you want to call it, just kind of makes it aluminum.
they should release. We're live now, right? I'm posting the
Oh,
link. If you
eh,
want to post, I'm going to drop it in there on LinkedIn. But I'm
good
trying to
dude.
pull up the picture now. I mean, I don't know. Lara Croft just has a certain vibe to me, right? And I feel like Sansa doesn't nail it. And don't get me wrong, she's great at what she does, and she's going to crush it. But you get those Croft vibes from her.
Yeah, man. I saw that picture from Simon this morning. I think it was the first person and that I saw it on LinkedIn this morning, and I was like, man, nailed it. I mean, I don't know anything else about the show, but that casting image of Sansa Stark. I apologize, I don't even know the name actress's name, but Sansa Stark. Probably pronouncing that wrong too. Like Lara, she looks amazing as Lara Croft. Like totally different from her character in Game of Thrones. I mean, obviously, but like I just think they nailed it. Like you got the blue tank top and the shorts. You're like, yep, that's what I would expect out of this character, right? You know, not as cartoony as my recollection of Angelina Jolie's version of her was, but you know what? That's kind of like she. I mean, what a hard thing to kind of comp to. You're basically competing against Angelina Jolie, like that's a hard hill to climb, even if the movies suck. I mean, the fact that she was Lara Croft is just kind of iconic in of itself, right?
And also, I mean, it helps in the fact that I feel like every few years, Lara Croft gets reinvented into that new image. It's never anything drastically different, but you can look at the whoever made the last few games, the Xbox ones, right? She kind of was re-envisioned from the original games on the PlayStation, whatever years ago, and this now we're going back to a new one, which I like it. It's a new generation, new way to take that new character in. It's for a new audience. It's not for us anymore.
Totally. And we may have talked about it last week, but I wrote about it, and then it just happened this week. So I feel like the last week's patch notes for me, my article, if you want to follow it on LinkedIn, that's where I posted. But I'm on Substack now, and if you go on Player Driven's website, I think there's a link to my Substack there. I have like a total of 3 followers there. So this is not my main place I've put the content, but things start from zero to grow. So shout out to the nascent Substack. It was requested by people who wanted it in the email form of Substack and not LinkedIn. So just giving what people want. Anyways, to my larger point, I feel like I was a week ahead on a lot of things. Like I posted on Friday, and then fast forward to this week. Hytale is a massive hit, which I covered. We can talk about that in a second. And then the other one was like Tomb Raider. And I looked at the data, just like what games are coming out this year that are going to be like hits, and like that one stuck out to me. The Tomb Raider remaster was one that was just like well and above everything else, with a kind of a placeholder date of sometime this year. So in our Tool at Mind game, it's 12/31 2016, right? Or 2000 or 2026. What decade am I in right now? 2026. And so it was one of the top games. And to me, this is like this image and just the trailer and the kind of reaction from the Game Awards and post reaction, kind of like in my mind summarizes that we're kind of returning into, and we talked about this last week. I remember now, like our old 2000s culture, but also like a return to fun. Like this image does not tell me that she is going to be. We're going to get almost a treasure hunter Lara Croft, not a sad living through trauma Lara Croft that we got from the 2010s version of Tomb Raider. And before you say, well, they found new creators, I'm like, no, it's literally it's Crystal Dynamics is making the next game. So same team or same company. I presume some of the same team are there. They're just reimagining her in a more quote unquote modern kind of version, which is very different than what people wanted in the 2010s, which is very different than what people wanted in the 90s and early 2000s. And I think we're getting closer to the late 90s, early 2000s version of Lara Croft than we are the 2010s, which just is like maybe just tells me the culture is circular. Basically, we are just go like this, and now we're going right back to that point. So good stuff. I'm excited to see a show. I would totally check it out now that I've seen the image and saw the trailer for the game. I'm like, and shout out to Amazon. You're gonna have a hit, and your transmedia flywheel is looks like it's gonna start into gear. You're gonna have a show and have a game. I hope they come out in and around the same time because that would be the optimal strategy. See all the recent drops in news around Fallout and their kind of increased playership. I think Gaming Biz did a whole thing on it where it's like, 70% or something. I could be quoting Chris wrong on this, but I'm gonna say 70% uptick in players, which really maps to what our data says. Like huge, huge uptick again with the Fallout new season. Same story we see in my game data across all games, obviously led by Fallout 4 is the biggest one that sees the biggest uptick, followed by Fallout 76 and everything else below it. But yeah,
With the Fallout data, first of all, there's a lot there, and I feel like we're not going to be able to unpack it all because I love what Amazon's doing. Last week we talked about First Light, now we're talking about Tomb Raider. They still have Fallout. Their gaming transmedia in introduction to, I don't know if you want to call it TV or streaming, obviously, right? Like Amazon's making a push here, and they're going hard. They tried gaming a little while ago, and it wasn't so sexy, and we talked about that. But now they're coming in from the other angle. Let's start with the media, get them excited about that, and it'll be interesting to see where they go. The
yeah.
other,
Can I add one more to that? And
yeah,
I'm gonna do a fact checker myself in real time right now. But yeah, I think the Amazon Transmedia story is really the one to hone in on. They have done such, and transmedia, what do we mean by that? I know it's a term that's just very in vogue right now. When I think of transmedia, I think of TV film. It's something in a medium that's games turned into TV and or film or both, right? That's kind of the definition in my mind of what transmedia is, or basically right now. And so to, obviously Prime Video's had massive success with the Fallout TV show. We're on the season 2 right now, so huge success for both them and Bethesda. Seeing a lot of the kind of downstream impact on the game numbers. So for those in the gaming industry, does transmedia drive players? 2 seasons into the show, yes, right. But then they're just kicking it into gear, and some of it's owned and operated assets, like we talked about Tomb Raider, and some of it's licensed stuff. So Sony is licensing God of War, the TV show, to Amazon Prime Video, and we got Opie from Sons of Anarchy playing Kratos, and I saw that on Twitter last night, and I was like, Opie, he's still acting? I was like, oh my god, perfect casting. Ryan Hurst, he got the beard. I was like, yeah. I mean, you guys got to put on a lot of muscle mass to really play Kratos, so I'm interested to see how they do that. But that show easily is in the top 3 most anticipated shows for me, and I haven't seen a single frame of it other than the casting of Ryan Hurst. I think is his name, and apologies if I got it wrong, but I call him Opie from Sons. Shout out to Sons of Anarchy, a great show from 10 plus years ago.
I do not
Um,
know Sons of Anarchy. I've not watched it. My dad has
so good.
consistently yelled at me for not watching it because he said it was the best TV on television outside of 24, which I agree is the best television show. We're back to normal. Kiefer Sutherland was arrested the other day. That's like old school Kiefer Sutherland, but that's neither here nor there. But that casting was right. Like the dude looked like Kratos. Like you log on, you're like they nailed it. Like this is what you need, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, so like Amazon's gaming strategy has it feels like it's becoming more about the video format driving into maybe games if they have the rights to games. Whereas they were trying to make games before, and I've written about this where I don't know. They kept trying to make MMORPGs. Like I just thought it was the weirdest strategy. Like how many MMOs can really be in the market at once is a question that I can answer. Maybe 5 scalable ones, especially the amount of money Amazon's putting in these things, both the license and or to create. And so they just kept making MMOs, and they kept making smaller games or partnering with public or developers to make smaller games. And like, that's why you saw the strategy kind of fall apart last year, and it sucks. There's a lot of cuts, so I don't want to just pass by that. But like a lot of people that worked on game studios are no longer working at game studios. And this year, and I think we talked about this at the very end of our session last week. I would call them probably one of the winners this year, and it feels like my take on that is pretty spot on. Like the Amazon comeback is in gaming, anyways, is going to be led by the content side, the TV, the film, etc., and then kind of paper over with some games if there are the games. So see the Tomb Raider stuff. Like I think that'll do very well when it's launched, and that is them publishing the game. And with the owning the like with the access to the Tomb Raider IP, with the people that like they lean on the team that made Tomb Raider games. Like Crystal Dynamic is still making Tomb Raider games, right? So that is that is awesome. So I think they're set to have a really good year. So that's like I'll be largely TV content and film content leading into gaming content. It's interesting, and I think Amazon's very much right there with Netflix on the forefront of that stuff.
Yeah. Let's move to our next topic, which is one you brought up last week, Hytale. And since you brought it up last week, I've seen it everywhere. And maybe it was just like I seen it and didn't click, but this is basically from what I've read, like people's hope for what Minecraft 2 is going to look like. And that's big eyes. Like you're not going to make Minecraft 2 out of this. But it has a great story and one that I love because it's focused on a community of gamers wanting something to come out. They're also embracing one of the things we talk a lot about on Player Driven, which is UGC. UGC is a huge driver for games. If implemented properly, it can really make your game take off. And that's, I think, going to be the hit or the make or break point for Hytale is how well does UGC go? Is it implemented properly? Do people start creating stuff for it? You need those actual engine people to create these things for you to make the engine work. And can you give us a rundown on what Hytale is, your thoughts on it, and what you're seeing?
Yeah, it's Hytale. The history of Hytale is interesting, right? So it was community driven. So your comp is very right. It's almost like Minecraft with a little bit more of a built-in RPG. It's got that kind of lo-fi kind of look and feel to it, right? The Minecraft design of the game, which I think is an interesting trend in the gaming industry, but I'll put a pin on that, the larger RPG space, generally speaking. But going into what the story is, I think the story is actually really fascinating and phenomenal, which is like this game, they got purchased by Riot. They were presumably making the game at Riot. And then Q3, like late Q3, Q4, early Q4 last year, it came out that Riot was shuttering the game, they're canceling it, and moving on. And the internet outcry from that moment, it was crazy. Like the community came up in arms. And so, to the credit of Riot for rioters, both former and current listening to this, they let the founders, get the rights back to the game. Now, I got to presume like there was probably some sort of like, yeah, you either purchase it or we take equity in whatever this company is going to be now. So those who are saying that Riot fumbled the ball or Tencent fumbled the ball and let this company walk away with nothing, and then they have a massive hit on their hands, doesn't understand business. There's no chance that Riot does not have a piece of this business. Zero chance. My guess is in the form of an equity stake, but who knows, right? But and if they're listening to this, the people the Hypixel, I believe, reach out and let me know. I won't share, but I'm just curious, like, but I presume it's some sort of equity stake. So, anyways, they let the creators put it back, and the creators, with the community, kind of come out with early access, and it's blown up, and something we saw in Mind Game. So we track that Mind Game data, we track the demand share and the attention share of games, both out in market and coming out the market, and Hytale, along with Arknights, Enfield, also launching this month, were like the two most obvious games that were going to blow up this quarter outside of Resident Evil, and they're coming out in January, right? And so, um, the themes about Hytale that really kind of speak to me as an analyst is almost twofold. One or threefold, right? The UGC side, 100%. Do we have another sandbox game to go with like Minecraft, Roblox, GTA 6, or GTA Online, and now are we just gonna have Hytale there too? Maybe, right? Maybe not. Remains to be seen. I think they had an explosive out the gate sort of thing. I think that's, but I don't think it's not a 0% chance. So let's say that, right? Next major theme. This is something I tell all my clients in the gaming industry. There are 12 calendar months in a year. So you all ignore January consistently, and then when there's a success in January, it's written off as, well, that was a one-off thing. Pal World came out in 24, was the most successful game that year, probably, right? All said and done. And people dismiss it as it only grew because it was a Pokemon clone, and now they're getting sued by the Pokemon company, blah, 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 blah. Which, truth to that, yeah, I mean, there is some of that to be said, but it still came out in January, still blew up, still had a moment, right? And right now, Hytale, I'm not saying it's Pal World, but it just proves the point again. Like, there are 12 months, you can release a wildly successful game any month of the year, and this month is now going to be run by Hytale. And like I would say, Arknights is going to be a hit too. So we're going to have 2 hits in January, in a month that people just generally ignore, which for reasons I cannot wrap my head around in this industry. So that's like trend 2. And then trend 3, to kind of land on it from an analyst perspective, is this what you're seeing in the broader kind of, let's call it RPG market as Hytale RPG Sandbox. Kind of lean on it's like a hybrid of both, but like you have Square Enix, you have Atlas making these premium AAA action adventure quasi style JRPGs, right? Or RPGs, right? On one end of the totem. And I think I would say that the biggest opportunity slash weakness to those kind of AAA high end experiences are the kind of lo-fi. Like one of the big things you see is like this like push toward like graphic fidelity doesn't need to mean that the game is great. So you're seeing people kind of games that pop out that are very much of a more indie, more lo-fi kind of grade, kind of continually pop up and like win, and especially true in RPGs, right? So I think that's like another trend that I kind of always watch is like, yeah, it's continually going to see that the opportunity is going to come from that side as these companies keep throwing more and more budget, more and more money into these massive AAA games. There is an opportunity to be kind of the cheaper alternative, and you have as much upside, if not more, because tastes are moving in that direction too for a whole lot of reasons. And then I'll let you jump in, Greg. Lastly, obviously, this game came in at $40. Again, keep saying the price point, price point, price point. We're in the stock market's up, but the people's vibes of what the economy is down. So people are not spending as much as they used to on games, that, or at least there are so many games out there that they are trying to spread that money around. And so the games that continuously seemingly pop off are the ones that are sub $50. I think that is a trend that is going to just probably continue into this year because the vibes have not shifted.
The January one in your piece last week, you go into Capcom and how they win Q1, and it makes so much sense. But I could tell you why people don't buy games in January, right? It's after the holidays. I don't want to spend money on my kids anymore. I have no money because of my kids anymore. And everyone's back in school, right? So the free time that I have to go play games is now dedicated back to school. So it's a harder fight to win. Maybe it's not a harder fight to win. You're competing with the games people just got in December for the holidays. And I know I'm making a point, but the point's negated by the facts that you have the numbers, right? The question is, if more games came out in January, then all of a sudden you still have the Sharks again in January fighting one another, right? It's the fact that they're identifying what the roadmap looks like for the industry and finding, all right, this is our spot here. And maybe it's within Q1, right? But maybe it's not always January, it's February, it's March, which I think RE4 was March maybe a few years ago you mentioned, or that's
Yeah, Capcom has take their claim on March and February. I think
yeah.
I
So
they've consistently not really releasing their games in. So that'd be not impossible, but like why let them just own the month? Because they basically kind
yeah.
of do. Is a good point. Yeah, I hear you on the holiday bit, and I part of my patch notes for this week, I am kind of touching on like how people are entertaining themselves with free time and like not to bring this back to the 1950s, but I feel like culturally the U.S. keeps trying to be the 1950s. Like we're not throwing baseballs outside anymore. Like that's not how people spend their time. They're spending their time engaging with interactive medium and games, and that includes the parents with their kids. Like it's not just kids playing games and like with their friends; it's also the parents. I'm very guilty of this. I spent so much of my holiday playing Lego Star Wars: The Complete Skywalker Saga, and was it mind numbing at parts? Not very hard, but my kid loved running around as General Grievous, and he's just like slaughtering people in the level as I try to find the hidden bricks for him so he can unlock more characters. So that was the dynamic that we were going with, right? And just like that's how people engage. So I'm not throwing the baseball, and my son plays baseball. We're just playing games together, and that's kind of how he gets entertained, how we entertain ourselves. And I don't want to overemphasize focus group of one, which is kind of what I'm doing here, but I think that is broadly true generationally. The millennials and some Xers, right? And I want to leave the Xers beside, like you guys all in the generation before, and we are gaming never left us, so we are continuously re-engaging our kids with games because that's what we are still engaging with ourselves. It just might not be Grand Theft Auto with them. Like, you're not of age to play GTA, so we'll just play something that passes the test. Then that might be a Lego game, that might be something like Minecraft, Hytale, whatever, right? I think that's a big part of it. So that's why I think there's an opportunity generally because like people still play games. This is how people are entertaining themselves ultimately, right? Time is time, and they'll play games. So I hear you. I'm not buying a bunch of new games per se, but I see why games like Hytale kind of break through. And again, sub price point of $50. You're like, nah, why not, right?
Yeah, you had me thinking now. What is GTA 6 going to be rated? I assume mature. It's
Oh,
It's gotta be,
yeah,
right? I mean,
to the
it's talking
trailers
about
and for mature. Like, I mean,
I
come
know
on.
it has to be, but then you're talking about the size of a market. I'm like, "Oh, they probably realize they need to get something to start getting the younger generation interested in it." We all grew up with GTA Overhead, we played, GTA 1, 2, whichever one the
Oh, the
other one
overhead ones. Yeah. I
I love.
mean, that's funny. I think I told the story I think before, but like my parents bought me GTA 3 when and they had no idea what it was because no one knew what it was, right? On the PlayStation 2. And like here's GTA and I played the heck out of that in high school, right? And I don't think it's changed at all. I think the dynamic is literally the same for GTA. Now parents know what GTA is, and they're not going to blindly buy it for their kids, but like still, you're the cool, edgy thing that all the older kids are playing. That in and of itself acts as a gravitational force into wanting kids younger. So they don't have to market to kids. Kids are going to want to play it because everyone that's older is playing it. And that's just like a tale as old as time. Old kids do something, young kids want to or follow old kids. And the world, the circle of life continues, right? On that. And I think that's all they need to do with GTA.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's fair. All right, let's move forward here. I think we spoke about this before we were recording, but Bobby Kotick is back in Kotick is
Cody?
is back in the headlines. You think he finally disappears for good? Microsoft does something good, as much as you hate Microsoft, and says we will take Activision off your hands and free the people of Activision until they all got laid off, but they didn't all get laid off. But now Bobby comes back making claims that Embracer doesn't like him, about claims about Call of Duty. You want to dive into that story?
Ugh.
Nope.
How where do I step on this first?
Pass.
Um, well, people that people don't like, and there's a lot of good reasons to have let's say a skeptic or a disdain for Bobby. They're not always wrong. So I'll kind of touch on that bit first. Illegal filings, he's being sued. You know, on and on and on, and he's kind of basically replying to kind of a legal proceeding is like where this news kind of bubbled up. At least that's my understanding of it. I read those stories on it, and so the first one where I was like, well, he's not wrong was, he stated out like, I sold Activision at the perfect time. See what's happening in the console market. See how Call of Duty sales this year are 60% lower than last year. That's a very specific data point. And then so I of course went to our own engine and my game checked it, and I was like, oh dang, we had it at 58%. So I he must be speaking from some point of knowledge. He must know something, but I don't think he's far off in terms of his estimations that Call of Duty this year was so much lower than last year's Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which we talked about in a previous live session. But like if Call of Duty Black Ops 6 reportedly per Bloomberg lost $300 million for Microsoft, and it was in terms of an attention share, a massive game, if not the biggest game, one of the biggest games of 2024, then how on earth does a game do 60% or let's say 40 to 60% worse than the previous installment and make a profit? If they lost $300 million, how much did they lose this year? That's a real question that I now have, and you'll never get a clear answer. But like this is the kind of the opposite of a positive flywheel. To me, this is the beginning of a negative flywheel because whether true or not, I saw that Microsoft came out after we talked last week, and maybe we brought this up, but they were like refuting the kind of quote unquote rumors of layoffs coming to the gaming department again. But like, you can't have a game underperform that big and have it lose money, presumably losing more money than the previous installment, and not have the flywheel go, well, we got to cut more people to save on costs. And now you're in a tailspin as opposed to a positive flywheel, right? You're in a tailspin where one thing will lead to another thing, lead to another thing. And I hope it doesn't end up like that way. I don't want that to end up that way, but like, numbers are numbers, and you're like, oh gosh, this is bad. And you know unfortunate that it had to come out in weird court proceedings about the Call of Duty numbers. But again, and almost like weird that he's like taking it as like a haha, I tricked Microsoft into buying an asset. Mike, the only reason the asset was cheap, dude, is because you did what you did, or at least you covered up what you did cover up. So they bought it because it was on discount. Like that's why you sold. They bought it because it was on discount. But you know I digress. I won't touch that. The oddest thing coming out of that, though, and it's just comical, is just like his conspiracy theory about the Swedes and Embracer Group. I'm like, shots fired. Does Embracer Group need to take more arrows? Like, oh my gosh. He's like, the conspiracy to try to force me to sell. They were, blah, blah, blah. Like, Man, I just see Charlie Day with yarn with him now, like, and the Swedes are over here, and he's got like a big string go down. I'm sure Bark is part of it too. He's like, it's all just part of the same conspiracy to take me out. So, yeah.
I'm trying to just read some.
as
I
he
mean,
as he buys a yacht and he was like off the coast of the Malfi Coast or whatever, or the in the Maldives in like an insanely large yacht, kind of racing Bezos and his all that. So I mean, complain on
speaking
your pile of infinite money.
speaking of Bezos, have you heard? Did you hear his statement?
Oh my gosh, what did he say?
He People were upset about this, which is surprising, but he is a believer that no one will own PCs soon. We'll all own devices that can connect to the cloud that runs our PCs, and people got upset by that. I didn't go deep into those details, and I actually don't necessarily think he's wrong. I think there still will be people that own PCs, but I mean, we've had VMware and other virtual desktops for decades, so I don't
Yeah,
think it's far
I'm
off.
like,
But
what's new there? I
people's
mean,
feelings.
yeah, people's feelings. Like, let's just break down what do you need a PC for, right? Like, are you running the web on your local browser? No, that's all run to the cloud. So everything you do on the internet, everyone that's listening to this, is run through the cloud, right? Today. That's just how that is the birth of AWS, basically, is the internet. The internet lives in the cloud. The cloud is access to a browser. The browser is the only thing locally running. But you're not actually running the websites on your browser or your machine, right? So that's like one. And so you go, what else is cloud based? Well, most enterprise software people use for work are running in the cloud, right? So Microsoft Word and et cetera, et cetera. There's a small localized version, but the majority of which is now running to the cloud. So that's like too. A lot of my files exist in the cloud too. Personally, like whether you're enterprise to a company you work for, you run things to the cloud, your files, et cetera, like an internet of sorts that's cloud based, or you're running your personal files in the cloud. A lot is cloud based too. So I don't think it's far off. I mean, I think what he's saying, like, so then why do people own big machines? That's probably what got the kerfuffle for Bezos. It's like, well, gamers love boxes with LEDs and high GPUs. And like, that's the thing I think he's like, we're so far away from that being not having to be the case. And that goes back to what's the biggest hang up on cloud gaming? It's multiplayer games and latency. And I would love your thoughts on this, Greg, because I feel you're closer to this like infrastructure stuff. But to me, it's like, yeah, you'd have to build so many servers that are so close to everybody who wants a game, so they can, and you have to have the games be so big where they can locally match make. Like the problem is basically the speed of light. That's the problem. Light can only move so much so fast, and so in a single player game that doesn't matter because if you see like a hairpin latency on you selecting a menu item in your JRPG, like you'll never notice nor will you care. But if you're playing competitively in CS:GO or Call of Duty or whatever, and you are off by a second versus the other person, then they're gonna just win every match, and that's not fun for you to play multiplayer games. That's what it boils down to. Multiplayer games, by just the technology kind of confines that it finds itself in, is always going to need to be like run locally until we have so many data centers and so many people gaming that you can locally match make to people in the same geographic region with the same data center running the game. Like then it becomes less of an issue.
Yeah, I mean, technology is hurdles we're going to always solve and move forward from. I think, the loudest voices on the internet is like 5% of the audience, right? So you hear people complaining about, oh, we want PCs, but those are probably gamers that game hardcore on their PC. I'm willing to bet 90% of people don't even know what that means or how that works, right? So they don't care what device they're using to access the web as long as they have something to access the web. I think latency will eventually be solved, right? You'll have your esports gamers where, yeah, they're going to have a beefy machine because this is what they do for a living. Then you're going to have the me's that, like, I'll play Battlefield and I suck at it. So it was a little bit of latency that I noticed or don't notice going to make the world a difference. Maybe, but I think that will get better over time. I think, we're at I don't want to say it's the dawn of the technology because it's been here for a few years, but I mean, technology moves quick. I mean, if you look at it, I think it was like 50 years ago is when we first got to the moon, or maybe 70 years ago now, right? Like, and now look at what we're doing. Like, things just speed up over time. So if there's a hurdle in the way, I don't doubt that people are smart enough than us out there to go solve that.
No, I mean, I totally agree with that. It's not a matter of if it'll happen. Of course it will. Like, I champion on our continual conversations I love having that I hate the box in my living room. If I don't I don't want a box to just an appliance to play games. I would rather have no appliance and use my shelf space for something else. So that would be the ideal world. So I'm all about anti-appliance, but I just think technologically speaking, we are on our way to that world, but we are also far away from that world, if that makes sense. Like we're not close to it, but we're closer to it than, what's the Bill Gates saying where, people want the future to happen now, like 10 years will happen in like a year, and then we'll go 10 years without any major shift, like, or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm like shooting at the hip on this, but he has like a really interesting quote that's basically like technological innovation, our expectations are immediate, and then but it happens over a long period of time, but then it'll happen really fast. Like you'll see innovation just happen like boom, right? And something like that, I think it would be the destiny of this type of thing. So I mean, and to be fairness, Valve is hoping that's not true because they want you to buy $1,000 machine and to put in your living room to play PC games. So
it's the streaming future. That's gonna be. Is it gonna cost $1,000? They didn't announce the price yet, right? It's just a
no,
speculation.
that's just a rumor that given the price of memory and GPUs, that there's no way they cannot charge like $1,000 for this machine. And at what point what are you buying? Well, I mean, like I mean, the internet piece. Come on, like if you're assuming the machine is going to rise in memory and GPU cost because it will, right, as everything else will. So will your gaming PC. Like those things don't stay flat. Like your Acer, your Asus, your Alienware, whatever piece of gaming pre-built hardware you're running, or if you're just going and buying your GPUs on the market, like, and you're doing a pre-build, like those things don't go down; they'll go up too, right? So yeah, like consoles are not living in a vacuum where they go up and everything else remains flat. Everything goes up, right?
That's how it works.
Ugh, reminds me of the crypto farmer era. We're just going into a worse version of it.
All 5 years ago of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It was 5 years of crypto farming, or 5 years ago. That kind of popped, and then we're just back at a more escalated version. And you actually read interesting thing about the crypto farmers. They actually like everyone like rails and like, oh, what a funny business you were in, and what a failure. Now they're making so much money on selling those GPUs and those like direct lines into kilowatts into the AI companies that they're actually more valuable now as just by having done the work in the crypto era and they crashed. But if they stayed around, they're making hand over fist money in the AI era. So hats off to those crypto farmers.
You know, I'm
They
going.
got the last laugh.
I'm going to Pocket Gamers this next week. So if you're in London, let me know anyone. We'd love to meet up and videotape what you're doing, what you're building, just meeting you, saying hi. But the first Pocket gamers I went to was in Seattle a few years ago, and it was all Web3 and it was all crypto based. And I remember walking in like, this is the weirdest thing ever. Like everyone's talking about the NFTs you can get and all this stuff, and just like, I'm not going to use the word cringy by any means, but like they were putting so much uh, everything into it. They're like, this is the future. This is what it's going to be. And I'm just like, how? Like, it's not quick enough. It's not, I don't know. I don't know. Technology's nuts.
Yeah, I'm I'm famously I just don't I, when people describe the value of crypto, and like let's just say like unpack it like ownership, like digital asset ownership to the person instead of the kind of the whatever, right? Like makes sense on its face, but just no one's explained to me how you build these ecosystems without them turning into a Ponzi scheme almost immediately. Like there's like nothing I have seen to date has not ultimately turned into a Ponzi scheme. And whether intentional or not, it doesn't really matter. It's just what happens. And the Ponzi ends up crashing, and just people are speculative chasing a thing. So I don't know. It's a bit of a gold rush mentality. And I think speaking of gold rush, I want to use this as a pivot. I I last week railed on Lego for making awful play sets, and now I'm here to eat crow. I'm not really. I knew this was happening. So, Lego launched their adult line for the Pokemon sets ahead of Pokemon Day. These were announced over a year ago, the idea of it, and then if you're in the Lego community, you knew what the sets were going to be basically based on all the leaks and stuff. So nothing came out as a surprise. You had Eevee, you have Pikachu, which is shockingly the ugliest one in my opinion, and then you have the original like starter 3-pack from the Kanto kind of OG Pokemon games and their full kind of evolutionary form, Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise, all kind of on a giant like kind of trophy as it were. I don't know what else to call it. It's just like it's just a awesome creative, just amazing looking like item to put on a shelf, which I will clearly do in my office. So I of course bought the dang thing, and I was like, yeah, and the Kanto badges were the sell through, like, oh, gift with purchase, boom. And speaking about speculators, like I know they're back. They kind of found more in stock for the pre-orders, but that set sold out in 24 hours. Gone, right? And the Kanto badges are going for 200, $300 on eBay now. Like basically the kind of hybrid mashup of I think it's like three things happening. You have the Lego community, which Pokemon has been in a buildable brick format before. They're part of Mega Bloks, owned by Mattel. Sorry, Mattel, but they're awful. I'm a Lego person. I hate those sets. I hate the design of the bricks. I don't like how they feel. I don't like the design. So, call me a snob, whatever, but no, no go. So I see these things in Target all the time. I'm like, oh, that's cool, but pass it by, buy Lego, right? It's kind of what I do, right? So you have the Lego kind of community behind Pokemon. Oh, who always wanted Pokemon sets. So it's like one. And then you have the Pokemon community who's addicted to collecting, right? So like I think there's like a collector's mentality when it comes to Pokemon. Everything they do boils down to collect, gotta catch them all. Like whether it be in the game, whether it be the cards, whether it be the Pokemon Go and you're chasing your AR Pokemon, your shiny Pokemon, like everything kind of distills down to collecting. So you have a hardcore collector mentality with Pokemon, right? On the other side. And the Lego, and I think you have this like adult, like we're celebrating 30 years of Pokemon, which means at minimum, those who grew up with Pokemon are 30 years old, if not older. So we are middle-aged dudes. The commercial really just nailed it. Like got a bunch of middle-aged dudes, like myself, living their benign lives. I'm gonna say my life's not benign, but like living the benign lives. I think it was an accountant in the ad, and he sees the ad and he gets his friends back together to go catch them all, and they're all just like totally dressed up as kids again. And it's a great ad. One, trolling the Lego fan community, which is basically what you're doing with the 18 plus line. They kind of knew what they're doing. And two, it's like not wrong. It's like, oh yeah, it's this nostalgia fest. So I kind of mean it's like someone made a comment that really stuck with me, and I'll let you jump in, Greg. It's like we're entering this era where maybe game companies like you all almost have two kind of worlds. You have younger audiences that are more discerning in how they spend their disposable income, and then you have this whale audience, the whales of gaming and the whales of just everything right now are these millennials, maybe younger Gen Xers entering their prime earning years with a bunch of disposable cash that instead is buying, going to football games because I mean I'm one. I'd rather watch a football game on TV. Going to a stadium is like it's fine, but like football is way better on TV. Full stop. So I'm not buying season tickets to an NFL game, but I clearly spend my discretionary income on other things. So it's not like that money doesn't leave; it just goes to other things. And it's in this like race of living your childhood and not letting go. I don't know if that's maybe the cynical way to put it, but or it's just like I like what I like and I age up with it and now I have all the money. They're tailor making experiences and or for things for me to buy that I'm going to Jeep on. So see the Lego adult line, which they keep adding more and more sets every year, and see the Pokemon $650 set selling out in 24 hours is crazy. That shouldn't have sold out. Like that's an expensive piece of hardware. So a bunch of adults just ran and bought their starter Pokemon from their youth and off to the races we go, living in this adult deep pocketed money while the younger generation is playing these free to play experiences or cheaper games because they don't have the discretionary income. So maybe I don't know. In this early take, maybe the gaming industry kind of goes, "Oh, we will make more premium games for that adult audience, that nostalgia, like see Tomb Raider, see Bond. We're going to chase with higher fidelity and a more premium price point that audience, and then the other side, they'll just continue making free to play or like cheaper games that will reach a younger audience." Thoughts? It's a lot. Threw a lot at you.
I
Ian.
will I will take a little bit of credit. I think it was last week I told you I was saying boomer. That I was reading that boomers are the next big investment in gaming because they have free time, they got money. But to your point, older millennials too, we fall into that category as well, right? It's I watch
I the
people.
boomer comment. My mom plays Words with Friends. My mom's a boomer, and they're not going to all of a sudden find affinity for Pokemon. That's just not happening, right? I think but I do think, and I used to tell this story at Twitch, like gamers will age up with gaming, and they will not let go of gaming, and you
Mhm.
just it's proved to be true and true and true. Like there's a younger Gen X. I don't want to forget them. I keep saying that, and the elder and millennial generation that is now just aging up into their prime years and for the Xers are kind of going into their early senior years, they're just not going to let go of gaming, right? Whether it be my brother who's older than me playing Madden, he's an Xer, playing Madden, he'll play Madden forever, right? Like he will not let go of Madden, or me and my own fandoms. Like we're the whales. We are the boomers, right? We will be the boomers, and we are the ones that are holding gaming and kind of moving up in the age bracket. And by proxy, the gaming is moving up the economic ladder with us, right? Because we're not letting go.
Yeah, I mean, seeing that Pokemon ad or Lego ad, right, was just like, yeah, like they know their audience, right? And it was just fascinating because I something I really like to talk about on all my podcast stuff is like, who's your audience? Who's your audience, right? And you think Pokemon, everyone's mind's gonna go like, oh, it's a kids game. Like, no, you're wrong, right? And yep, kids love it, but there's money there because there's a lot of older kids, like super
Yeah,
older kids, like that play this stuff, right? Like, and they nailed it. To your point about the games or the gaming, I mean, I think they've already noticed that, right? To your point, they're bringing back Tomb Raider. You mentioned it last week that the 2000s is coming back, right? They kind of know how we scratch our itches, right? And
that that
it's
makes me a
exciting.
bull on Master Chief game coming PlayStation. Eyes on that, because if they're gonna have what's Xbox's mascot that's nostalgia bait that could do really well, it's a Halo, right? But like when my question to gaming, and this is kind of where you see Nintendo and Pokemon doing really well on this one, is like giving your brand extension in more places for people to engage with it, and ideally places where they can give more money is kind of the secret here. So Pokemon, in my piece I'm writing that'll be out tomorrow, I'm calling them the Tiamat of gaming and branding IP. So what's that? What's a Tiamat? Like, it's a five-headed dragon from Dungeons and Dragons. It's a dragon god. It's got the dragon heads. It's oftentimes the end of campaign boss. Yada yada, or like a more common villain, right? To kind of overarching campaigns, Tiamat, right? And to that end, it's like each dragon is powerful by themselves, but collectively they're just like a insurmountable super beast, right? And so Pokemon is insanely great at making console games. They're insanely good at mobile. They're insanely good at trading card games, so physical trading card games. They're insanely good at merchandising. Like, oh gosh, that's a whole other one. I'm looking at on that one. And then they're insanely good at transmedia. Like the Pokemon animated series is the top gaming IP on Netflix, and they just 30 years of animated show that does not go away. Ask Ketchum did not hang up his hat until like this decade. He is he was a Pokemon master chasing guy for like almost 30 years. Like, that's crazy, right? And multiple generations look to Ash and go, "Oh, he was my guy," right? Like, and by proxy, Pikachu. So when you look at, like, I saw a graph out there, it's like the biggest brands of all time, and from a retail IP standpoint, and Pokemon's number one at over $100 billion in retail sales.
Mhm.
That is because they are this five-headed beast. Like that, and they surpass Mickey Mouse in terms of like the estimated like things per this chart. Like, I'm like, if that's true, that's crazy. But I actually buy it because the Pokemon is everywhere, right? It's not just with money. It's like almost everywhere. Like in all continents around the world can look at Pikachu and just go Pikachu. I know exactly what that is, right? Um, so first I want your thoughts, and then I'm gonna ask you what your Pokemon is. Everyone
I
has a Pokemon.
Everyone has a Pokemon. From your point about the five-headed beast, right? Like, that's awesome, and I want to dive more into that. Not now, but like, yeah, like they're conquering everything. And I know, isn't there like a Pokemon theme park now somewhere in China as well, or Japan? Like they could be Disney, right? They got the characters, they got the revenue, they got the people, they got everything, right? Like if they build it out, like they could build. I don't know what percentage Nintendo owns of the Pokemon company. That's a real question. I'm like,